screen?
It's supposed to. We gotta tell someone to turn it on. Who's running it?
That's for PA.
Is PA?
Okay, so we're. Alright. Hi.
Hey, but are you running down?
I am not. I think Colonel Ventress is, but it's not part of
my
it.
wing commander's here. Called out, but he didn't ask me.
Some of the let me look and see what Ventress is. This is all we're doing. Just generic. Ladies and gentlemen, the ceremony will begin momentarily. Please find your seats and silence all cell phones and other electronic devices with the exception of cameras. Thank you. What part did you?
Read that one.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, the ceremony will begin momentarily. I would ask you please find your seats. Silence all cell phones and other electronic devices with the exception of cameras. We will start momentarily. Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Master Sergeant Adam Thompson, and it is my honor to be your narrator and guide through today's ceremony. As a reminder, outdoor protocol will be observed, and you will be prompted to stand and be seated at the appropriate time. During the singing of the national anthem and playing of taps, military members will stand at attention, face the flag, and render a salute. Our civilian guests should also stand, remove their hat, and place their right hand over their heart. Today we seek to honor and remember an extraordinary airman and our brother, Senior Master Sgt. Rick A. DeMorgan. The host and presiding officer for today's ceremony is Commander for Special Operations Squadron, Lieutenant Colonel Peter Ventures. Please stand for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for the presentation of the colors, the singing of the national anthem, and the invocation.
Post the colors.
Go! Ten, put! Right shoulder! Put! Away! Put! Up about! Put! Good! Put! Freeze it! Put!
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets regular, the balls bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Right shoulder! Huh! Mark gun! Mark! Forward! Mark!
I would invite you to pray with me. Father of all grace and God of all comfort, it is said that your strength is made perfect in our weakness. We need your strength today, Lord. In these dark hours, strengthen us by your word and spirit. Grant us your abiding presence as we struggle with events that we simply cannot understand. Take into your care the DeMorgan family, whose hearts are heavy with grief and sorrow. In talking with Rick's parents this morning, his mother emphasized Psalm 121. I will lift up my eyes to the mountains. From whence shall my help come? My help comes from the Lord, who made the heavens and the earth. Console all of us here today and all who knew Senior Master Sgt. Rick DeMorgan, especially the Spooky community, past and present, that served with him here and across the globe. Help us here at the Fourth to grieve together. Help us to both laugh and cry with each other as we remember Rick and as we share stories about him. And as we remember him, may we cherish those memories and be truly thankful for them. Those who knew him best told me that he would probably be upset with having a ceremony like this today. He would tell us to quit thinking about and honoring him and to get back to work, to get back to the mission. And Lord, that is why he is so dearly loved and will be so deeply missed. As we remember Rick and his passion for life, may we be inspired by his example, inspired to live every day as if it might be our last, inspired to give 110% in everything that we set our hands to, inspired to give, to serve, and to fight for those who cannot fight for themselves, inspired to embrace the life of a sheepdog. May we be inspired to remember our own mortality. And for some of us, may we look beyond this life and may we live for the next. May we rest in the hope that one day you will receive us into your glory, where you will wipe away every tear from every eye, where you will make sense of every hardship and every difficulty, and where we will live with you in joy and in peace forever. For we pray this and all things by your grace and for your glory. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. On behalf of the men and women of the 4th Special Operations Squadron, we offer our sincere appreciation to the Hurlburt Field Honor Guard for your continued support and professionalism. Airman Levang for that heartfelt rendition of our national anthem, and Chaplain Wright for your words of wisdom and comfort. At this time, it is my honor to invite our host, Lieutenant Colonel Peter Ventress, to come forward and provide his remarks.
Good morning. We thank you for making time to join us in this special memorial service for Senior Master Sgt. Rick DeMorgan. We'd like to take a moment to recognize and welcome the members of his family in attendance today. First, his wife Rebecca and his children Lucas and Logan. Next, Rick's mother Linda and his father Rick Sr. His sister Virginia and her husband Leo. His mother-in-law, Linda, and father-in-law, Tim. And to the remainder of Rick's family and friends, we thank you for joining us today. We'd also extend a warm welcome to the command teams from Headquarters Air Force Special Operations Command, as well as the 1st, 24th, 492nd Special Operations Wings. Thank you for joining us as we honor a warrior, a teammate, a friend, a son, brother, husband, and loving father. We extend that appreciation to all civic leaders, distinguished guests, and friends sharing this day with us. I wish we were sharing it under different circumstances, but rest assured, and as the chaplain pointed out, we all know Rick's rolling out his eyes at us right now, pretty much telling us to get on with it. But the void created by the sudden loss of someone beloved, or as beloved as Rick, is still hard to grasp. It demands that we pay homage to the dedication he's shown all of us. I also feel compelled to point out one thing. Only Rick can draw such a crowd as this. We should all be so fortunate to have such dedication shown us when our call to serve on another plane comes. Before hearing from others on Rick's exploits, stories which I'm assured will have varying levels of truth and color, I'd like to provide a thought. While on the surface, the day can appear to be a day of mourning, a day of grief and reflection of loss, and of thoughts of what could have been, I submit that it's also a day of celebration. A celebration of a great life that touched many hearts, inspired so many minds, and steered so many lives. A celebration of family, a celebration of friends, a celebration of brothers in arms, and a realization that they're actually all one thing. That is not to say that we should deny grief. That's impossible, especially with a loss such as Rick's. But that we should remember to be thankful for the gift of Rick's life. I know the chaplain already shared with us some reflections from the great TO of life, but I'd like to share a verse that I think reflects how Rick lived his. It comes from Isaiah 6:8. Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, "Whom shall I send, and whom will go for us?" And I said, "Here I am, send me." Many of us know this as the unofficial motto of Special Operations, and it could apply to anyone here wearing their uniform. But Rick embodied it. When answering the call, he wasn't just signing up. He wasn't just coming forward to be counted amongst the masses of volunteers. To Rick, send me meant send me to make a difference. Send me to make others better, to foster growth, and to speak truth to power. He did this to great effect while overhead Special Operation ground parties, ensuring all of their safe returns. And he made damn sure the 12 men and women riding in the chariot of freedom into battle with him were as prepared as possibly could be. But Rick held a high standard, and his respect had to be earned. If he was riding you like a rented mule, it's because he saw potential, and he was going to make you better, even if it hurt. Here I am, send me. You cannot be part of the Gunship Nation or AFSOC and not have benefited from Rick's mentorship, initiative, or drive. He was a trusted advisor to all, no matter what squadron patch you wore or what your rank was. He was strong in character and dedicated to being a senior NCO. Rick, you impacted all of us in so many ways, but always in the positive, always with the intent of making us better through mentorship, which sometimes included a flashlight in your hand, but never with the want for personal gain or glory. In fact, it's this last point that you can almost list as one of your greatest faults. No one present, and many more not present, can deny the fact that their lives are better for having you in it. I mentioned earlier that Rick is not gone, and I believe that. He lives on in all of us. We are his temple. We are his opus. He's woven deeply into the cloth we wear as the Gunship Nation. His spirit is to lift under our wings. His dedication to perfection is interlaced into the DNA of all of our Air Commandos. Rebecca, Lucas, Logan, Virginia, Linda, Big Rick, I'm so sorry for your loss. But know that hundreds of people have gathered here today from all reaches of the U.S. to pay homage to your loved one. Your family is tens of times larger than even you knew. And though you may walk through the shadow of the valley of death, you should fear no evil. For we, Rick's brothers and sisters in arms, walk alongside you. And just like Rick kept overwatch of thousands of special operators, delivering them safely home, we will keep overwatch of you and deliver you safely from the valley. Rick, it's time to raise the parting glass. You are a red devil, specter, spooky, personified deep down words, and we're humble, approachable, incredible. You are a friend and still a great mentor. And until we meet again, may God hold you gently in the palm of his hand.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Ventris. We will now have a few of Rick's close friends and colleagues share words of remembrance in honor of the time they served with Rick. Our first speaker is Senior Military Evaluator from the Office of the Secretary of Defense, Colonel Megan Ripple.
What do you say when you lose someone that we all thought was invincible, right? How many knee surgeries, how many accidents did he walk away from? And how many mornings did we know that Rick would just be there? He would be our rock. And he's still our rock. He's just not sitting right next to us anymore. If Rick were here right now, he'd say, whatever you say it fast, and not so much. I could always count on him in the back of the auditorium to roll his eyes when the commander's call went too long. But there's so much to say about the life of Rick DeMorgan. And as phone calls went back and forth last week, and as we read posts on Facebook, and as we heard today, there's a common theme. Rick embodied excellence. And that excellence, ma'am, sir, it came from you. I don't have to tell you the son you raised. You know. But if you look around right now, Rick was a man who made every single one of us better. And he did it the hard way. Because he knew, as we were talking about this morning, sir, it is always easier to get easier. But it is never easier to get hard. So you better start out hard. And you start out hard from the place in your heart that a parent has for those that they love. And that's caring. Caring is the silent word that isn't in all those Facebook posts, and it's not a word that Rick would have said. But it's what fueled every single day and everything he did with each and every one of us. He cared. He cared enough to light you up. It doesn't matter what your rank was or who you were. You did it wrong and you were going to face Rick. And as I look around, especially at some of the more junior folks in this formation, you probably only ever saw the Rick. The piece that you didn't see was what he delivered to those of us who were charged to care for you when he shut the door of a commander's office. When he shut the door of a commander's office and he sat down and he said, hey, ma'am, you're not doing good enough. That's not good enough for our people. We need to fight the group. We need to fight the weapons school. We need to fight somebody on behalf of our people. That was our Rick. So when you saw the sternness and you saw him looking at you and you felt like you could never do enough, know that he took that all the way up. Every Monday morning, he and Dante and I would get together from my office for coffee. And we'd sit around and we'd talk and we'd figure out what do we need to do for the week for our people. And those stories that we told of the weekend often came back to the things that we valued most, our kids. And I know that it doesn't help the hurt that you feel right now. But your dad was so swollen up with pride over the two of you. And those morning coffees, hearing what Luke and Logan Grace were up to, are some of my most treasured memories. And he treated us very similarly to how he treated you in the way that he loved and cared for us every single day. If we had airmen who weren't meeting the mark, Rick's answer wasn't, how do we put the paperwork together to get rid of them? It was, what do we need to do to fix them? What do we need to do to get them to the standard? And how do we do that together? He knew that caring was more than just hugs and high fives, and I think someone in here asked me, did he even know what a hug was? I'm pretty sure he did. He was a private man, but in his hardest moments, he was ample with a hug for you, if for nothing else, because he thought you needed it or needed it. But he knew that caring meant holding people to a standard, because that is what will help them the most. And as much as I couldn't believe the news when I heard it last Thursday, it was no shock to me that we lost Rick serving other people. His 4 generations of service wasn't something that he trumpeted, but it was who he was. Service coursed through his veins. And when you talk about someone who exuded service before self, he didn't talk about it, he just did it. He was also an incredible uniting force. I think if you look around this room, there isn't one airframe in Air Force Special Operations Command that isn't here today, represented. He was willing to light you up, didn't matter what patch you had on your sleeve. You better be good enough for the AFSOC standard, and that was Rick's way of doing business. But with that came a unification. We saw it over at the 14th. He was an equal opportunity hard butt, and he was willing to take care of all of us. To his family, I know that nothing that I say today is going to take it away. But I hope that looking around and seeing how very many lives he touched provides some small piece of solace. The only thing that we can do with the hole that Rick left is to try to live up to his standard and live our lives the way he would, in his lives, in his model. And on a day like today, he would have loved to have flown, because he didn't like the easy weather days. He wanted it to be hard, because that's where you got better. And so for each of us, as we leave today and we look to mend pain, look to do the harder right, because that's what we can do for Rick. And the only word that I can say is thank you. I am so incredibly thankful to have served alongside Rick DeMorgan and to have had him shape who I am, who my kids will be, and who each and every one of us who wears the AFSOC patch will be moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Ripple. We now invite Lieutenant Colonel Murphy forward to offer remarks.
Thank you, Pete, Ben, Kellen, for organizing this. As Colonel Ripple mentioned, there's a common theme here. Rick spoke truth and was an expert in his craft. He could tell you that you're all banged up while making everyone laugh with you and not at you, of course. He was also the flight engineer that you paired a new aircraft commander with. And looking back, I'm glad the Air Force saw something that we all saw and gave him the hardest rank in the Air Force to achieve. But again, I'm not the first person and the last person to say any of this. What I will tell you about is the effect that he had on the 16th SOS. His brash way of enforcing the standard instilled in me as a young co-pilot to know my stuff. I didn't want to hear the famous line from Rick, "What the heck, co-pilot?" But his way reinforced there's a standard. And an interesting phenomenon occurred in the 16th as Rick enforced that standard day after day. Somehow, in its own funny way, Rick's unrelenting approach built the 16th into a high-performance team while also instilling camaraderie, cohesiveness, and friendship. And it explains exactly why so many people are here right now. Folks, this is the legacy that Rick DeMorgan leaves behind. To the DeMorgan family, I'm sorry for your loss, and if there's any consolation, please know that we are all better because of Rick. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Murphy. We now invite Chief Fossbender forward to offer remarks.
As I look around today, and I think it's been mentioned quite a few times already, the size of this crowd is indicative of the pronounced impact that Senior DeMorgan had on all of us and for AFSOC. And to be quite honest, I had a much longer speech. However, I was told to keep it PG-13, and they redacted most of my speech with the finer points I had to say. I'll start by saying, though, that I'm still in denial. I keep thinking that he'll bust into my office at any moment, like the Kool-Aid man, and shout, "Chief, we have to talk." I want to share a story how I first met Rick, and I think it encapsulates the man we knew him, and I think it captures him best. It was many years ago in a land far away where bee hut living was the best. At least for me, I was just visiting from far away where tent living was the norm. I went to take a shower, and as I got closer, I heard someone singing, like a German heavy metal band. I think I even heard a few Du Hast thrown in there. Well, once in the shower area, I quickly found out it was not singing, but a lot of swearing and yelling. I guess I didn't have an ear for German heavy metal. But anyway, as I was shaving, he stepped out and started, to put it mildly, complain about cold showers and a litany of different things that I can't remember today, but I remember looking at him and just nodding my head and thinking, this dude is angry. But he made some good points, and we bid our pleasant goodbyes, and I got ready to shower. And after he left, I went over and moved the hot water heater lever and took my hot shower. I thought, what a rookie. As a disclaimer, I only did that once, so if you ever had a cold shower while deployed, it definitely wasn't my fault. Rick was larger than life, and I never knew what to expect when we spoke, but I always knew it would come across as some old Marine drill sergeant. The reason I remained friends with him was the way that he inspired people around him to be better. He was loyal, and he definitely had the utmost candor. But he always got the mission done. Rick always made sure that wherever he went, his friends came first. He would never abandon a friend or brother in need, and can always bring you up when you felt down. He was funny, animated, brutally honest, and courageous. He loved his children dearly. He loved life, and he loved being an air commander. We still cannot help think why. Why do we have to lose such good men? Part of the answer is only good men like Rick volunteer to serve and defend their country, or to answer the call of a country in need. His motivations and the act of enthusiastically following his calling in a dangerous environment is by its very nature an act of heroic self-sacrifice for the sake of others. As we honor Rick today, and his spirit of self-sacrifice and devotion to duty to be awe-inspiring, I think it's important that we not remember how he died, but the way he lived. Thank you.
I just want to point out that would have been such a Rick moment, and just to throw that paper out there. Thank you, Chief Fossbender. We now invite Senior Master Sergeant Busga forward to offer remarks.
Good morning, leaders, warriors, friends, and family. Thank you, fellow speakers, for offering your thoughts, as we're just a few of the countless affected members in our community sharing what Rick DeMorgan means to us, who have also struggled to find the words to express the loss of such a giant within our family. Rick was a hell of an aviator and a good friend and sounding board who always had a solid opinion or sanity check for anything you might throw at him. No matter what, I can't imagine anything that would have shocked him or caught him off guard, and even if it did, he was so quick to fire back some thoughts and comments that there is never a chance that he was going to be caught speechless. When Rick is around, whether it's in the airplane, in the office, or sitting around in plywood shacks or dorms in Bagram, you'd better bring your A game, because if you didn't, Rick would open up some of that legendary rapid-fire public mentoring that certainly encourages you to keep sharp at all times. Sometimes you'd say or do something and immediately think, oh man, he's not going to let that slide, and he wouldn't. But it almost always ended in all of us laughing at and with one another, as families tend to do. For the past 15 years, Rick and I sort of grew up together in the gunship nation, and I always saw him as an outstanding technician and an NCO, but it was as a senior NCO where he really shone as someone who had no room for BS and someone who really took care of his people. The thing about Rick was, I can't ever remember him doing things for himself, to be in the spotlight. And as a natural born and raised mechanic, he was a behind-the-scenes fixer who mastered AFIs and tech manuals so that he was never going to run out of ammunition if he had to step up and fight for what was right and solve problems for others. He really had a passion for knowing his people up and down the chain, taking care of them so that they were ready for the next challenge or mission. He was excited to go fight the fires in Australia, and it was absolutely fitting that he transitioned from flying left-hand orbits and providing protection for ground forces from enemy fire to low-level flying to protect and serve our Aussie brothers and sisters from the encroaching deadly wildfires they face. It seems fitting as he was there to serve and protect others. Finally, Rick was undeniably the best in this profession, and his high standards of integrity and performance had an effect that compelled others to rise and achieve higher levels of performance themselves. Some of us talk about the burden of sorrow we feel in this deep, painful loss. And when we're feeling especially down, it's as if we can hear Rick's voice saying, stop being such a sissy. Something like that, and we all know what Rick would say. And it'd be the kind of thing that might knock us down a little, but he would follow it up with words and actions that pick us up and get us back in the fight better than we were before. So, to honor our friend, perhaps we can look to just a few attributes that made Rick great, hold them ever closer to us as we continue down the path together. Attributes like his deep commitment to service and his never-ending drive for excellence, as well as his ability to give that hard advice and deliver blunt feedback we all need to give and receive from time to time. If we do this, we honor our friend, this hero, and carry on the influence he's had on us, and find strength to get up, get back in the fight together, better than we were before. Thank you.
Senior, conduct the roll call. Flight engineers, roll call. Sergeant Gosner.
Here, Senior.
Sergeant Boyle.
Here, Senior.
Sergeant Gordon.
Here, Senior.
Sergeant Iredale.
Here, Senior.
Sergeant Slater.
Here, Senior.
Sergeant Griffin.
Here, Senior.
Sergeant DeMorgan. Senior Master Sergeant DeMorgan. Senior Master Sergeant Rick Allen DeMorgan.
Senior. Sergeant DeMorgan. He's not here.
Senior Master Sergeant DeMorgan has been taken from the mighty gunship nation.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. On behalf of Lieutenant Colonel Ventris and the men and women of the 4th Special Operations Squadron, we thank you again for joining us today as we honored Senior Master Sergeant Rick DeMorgan. We invite family, friends, and colleagues to join us at the 4th SOS for a celebration of Rick's life. This concludes the formal portion of this ceremony. Please stand while the family pays their final respects and remain standing for the departure of the official party. We welcome all of Rick's crew members, friends, and co-workers to render a final salute by utilizing the center aisle to approach the memorial. Thank you once again for remembering with us today.